So verbs in English are either transitive or intransitive. You know that transitive verbs take an object, whereas an intransitive verb does not take an object. And of course, verbs constitute one of the main parts of speech, or what we call word classes in the English language. Verbs are considered as the governor of the sentence. هي الحاكم في الجملة. Like other types of words in the language, English verbs are not heavily inflected, which means that they do not have lots of inflections in them. We have, for example, when we have the tense, which is the present simple tense. In English, we add the third person singular as to the end of the verb if the subject is what is singular. Most combinations of tense, aspect, mood, and voice are expressed periphrastically. Periphrastically, it means by using another item plus the verb in order to constitute the mood or the tense, the voice, and sometimes the aspect. It's not what just one word. You have a mixture. For instance, we have auxiliary verbs and making constructions such as mood or voice. Let's move. Now, in this slide, we are in front of examples, and in these examples, we have a variety of verbs. For instance, the first one, she is smiling in front of the audience. Now, what is the verb here? It is what? It is smiling, which is in the what? Present continuous tense, and the mood is indicative. It is in the active voice, and the aspect is a progressive. And the verb here is periphrastically constructed. Why? Because we have the auxiliary is plus the present participle of the verb smiling. And the sentence is a simple one. They are selling their company's products to people. The same, are selling, periphrastically constructed, which is again a present progressive tense. He apologized to the teachers, apologized. Just one word. Though we have two morphemes, the ed is a bound morpheme. Just one word constituting the past tense in English. Same is true the other one. He left this bag here and went outside. He left this bag here and went outside. He is sitting next to you. He's sitting next to you. إنه جالس بجوارك. Sitting, again, periphrastically constructed. She matriculated in Kazan University. يعني قبلت في جامعة كازان. She matriculated in Kazan University. قبلت في جامعة كازان. My mind is sated with the great ideas. Sated, passive voice here. Again, periphrastically constructed. So as you can see that verbs in English in general are periphrastically constructed. Now we come to the element of an object. This element is also one of the basic ones, which is you know that employed in what? In sentences that contain a transitive verb. As we have mentioned with the element of the subject, it could be a noun, a pronoun, a noun phrase, even a clause. An object is a noun phrase, or a pronoun that is affected by the action of a verb. So there is an action of a verb which affects this element, which is the object. Objects give our language detail and texture by allowing the creation of complex sentences. Now, in this slide, we have two examples. I'm going to add a third one. In order to explain what is meant by the creation of complex sentences by adding details and texture. He kicked the ball at me, and he kicked the ball to me. These are what? Simple sentences in which the object is the ball. They differ, their construction and the use of a different preposition. In the first one, we have the preposition at, and in the second one, we have the preposition to. He kicked the ball at me. This is an aggressive action. ابتداء يعني. Kick the ball to me. لا ولا هي. So it is not aggressive. He said that he will resign. That he will resign. This is a clause, a noun clause. So this is a complex sentence. Now this clause, which is a noun clause, that he will resign, constitutes the object of the verb said. So this is what is meant by the creation of complex sentences. Let's move. Here in front of you, the types of what? Of an object. We have direct objects and we have what? Indirect object. Now, direct objects are the results of action. We have a subject and that subject does something, and the product is the object, is the object itself. For example, if we say, Mary wrote a poem. Mary wrote a poem. In this case, the noun, which is a poem, follows what? The verb wrote. So the action of writing a poem is done by what? By the subject, Mary. So the verb write is a transitive verb which requires what? Which requires an object. Now also we have another type, which is indirect objects, which receives or responds to the outcome of an action. And here, let us consider this example in order to see the difference between a direct and indirect. Mary sent me an email. Mary sent me an email. Here we have two objects, me, this is the first one, and an email, which is the second one. Generally, objects that refer to a person, a human being, personal pronouns, for instance, they refer to what? To indirect objects. They constitute the indirect object. An email, which is a thing, this is the direct object. So me here is the receiver of what? The email. So the indirect object always goes before the direct object. And of course, we can reverse the order by using a preposition. We can say, Mary sent an email to me. To me. We have objects of a preposition. And here we have nouns or pronouns that occur after a given preposition. Sometimes they are called complement of a preposition. So objects of a preposition are nouns or pronouns in a phrase that modifies the meaning of a verb. For instance, if we say, Mary lives in a dome. Mary lives in a dome. In a dome, this is a prepositional phrase. Why? Because we have a preposition in, which is followed by a complement, a dome. And a dome modifies the action of living. So the noun dome follows the preposition in. Together, they form what is called a prepositional phrase. As I have mentioned, this noun or pronoun is considered as the object of the preposition or as the complement of the preposition. Let us see another element, which is the complement. A complement is a word or a phrase. Sometimes it is a clause that is necessary to complete the meaning of a given expression. Complements are often arguments, just like the subject and the object are also considered as arguments. They are connected with what? With verbs. Let us start with the first one, which is called subject complement. The verb is a linking verb. Sometimes we have a verb of to be or a linking verb, and let us see. A subject complement is a word or phrase, usually an adjective phrase, noun phrase, or pronoun, that follows a linking verb, and it describes or renames the subject of the sentence. It is also called subjective complement. يعني ممكن أن نسميها بالsubjective complement, or we call it a subject complement. Now here we have examples to illustrate what is a subject complement. Number one, the light in the chapel was warm and soft. Warm and soft, these are adjectives. They describe the light in the chapel. So both are subjective complement. They describe the light in the chapel, which is the subject. Mrs. Rooney was my fourth grade teacher. Mrs. Rooney was my fourth grade teacher. My fourth grade teacher is a noun phrase which renames the subject, Mrs. Rooney. So who is Mrs. Rooney? She is my fourth grade teacher. And in such relational clauses, in such equational clauses, we can reverse what the positions of the subject and its complement. We can say, my fourth grade teacher was Mrs. Rooney. Now, my fourth grade teacher was exceptionally kind. Exceptionally kind describes the teacher, which is the subject. Another type is object complement. And again, this complement follows an object. And let us see the examples. They chose him PM. They chose him PM, Prime Minister. So him is an object, PM is the complement of that object. And out of the two, we can constitute a clause. We can say he is the PM. I prefer my coffee black. My coffee is the object and black is the complement of that object. and we can say my coffee is black. Arabic sentences can either be nominal or verbal. And you know that verbal clauses start with a verb, but nominal clauses start with a noun or a pronoun. So in Arabic, we have two basic types. We have nominal and we have verbal clauses. Now, let us proceed. So in Arabic, subjects can either be explicit or implicit. جاء متأخرا. The subject is not explicit here, it is implicit. Who came? It is he. It is understood out of the context and out of the form of the verb, جاء. If we say جاءت, now the subject is she. جاءوا هم وهكذا. الكتاب مفيد. This is a nominal clause in which we have a theme المبتدأ الكتاب, and مفيد is what is the comment, which is الخبر. أمطرت السماء, a verbal clause, and this ta with أمطر is a feminine morpheme. Why? Because the subject السماء in Arabic is considered as a feminine noun. حضر الرئيس اليوم. حضر is a verb which is in the past. الرئيس is the subject, so again we have what? We have a verbal clause in which الرئيس is an explicit subject. Again, يعجبني أنك مثابر. Here in this clause, يعجبني أنك مثابر. أنك مثابر is what is a clause which constitutes the subject. أنك مثابر, it is the thing that attracts me, that appeals to me. قومي الآن, this is an imperative clause. But the subject is explicit, which is what? Which is the enclitic pronoun الياء. هذا الضمير المتصل مع الفعل represents the subject. So here we have a difference between imperative clauses in Arabic and imperative clauses in English. In Arabic, the subject is there. It is clear, it is explicit. The surface structure of the clause. قاموا ضد الظلم. Here again, this waw, which refers to the plural, represents the Arabic subject in this clause. So in Arabic verbs, we have transitive verbs and we have intransitive verbs. Mood is there, voice is there, tense is there, the aspect is there. All of these are reflected in this important category, which is the verb. And the same story applies here. Transitive verbs, there are objects. Intransitive verbs, there are what? No objects. Now, Arabic verbs, when there is an object, we have some verbs which are monotransitive. And when we say that such a verb is mono, it means it takes what? Takes one object. Mono, it means one. We have ditransitive verbs when there are two objects. And in Arabic, ditransitive verbs are limited number. Anyway, let us consider these examples. Let's consider these examples. أعطيت الولد هدية. أعطيت الولد هدية. أعطى is a verb. And this enclitic ta represents the subject. And الولد is the first object. And yet there is another object which is the second one, هدية. And it is translated into English as I gave the boy a gift. I gave the boy a gift. The boy is the indirect object and a gift is the direct object. So the verb أعطى in Arabic is ditransitive, and the same applies to English. Let us consider another example, and then we are going to refer back to the first one. وجدت عليا كريما. وجدت عليا كريما. Translated as I found Ali generous, or I found Ali to be generous. The two objects are related. Out of Ali and Karim, we can create a clause Aliyun Karimun. Both of them what constitute a nominal clause in which we have mubtada and khabar, theme and dream, or topic and comment. So Kariman is the complement of the object Ali. But we go back to أعطيت الولد هدية. We cannot say الولد هدية. They are not related semantically. So this is a big difference between the two. Now, again, subjects in Arabic can be explicit and implicit. يعجبني أنك مثابر, as we have mentioned this example, could be translated as your diligence admires me. In this example, the whole clause أنك مثابر functions as the subject of the sentence. And subject in Arabic could be nouns, could be pronouns, could be noun phrases. Now, in your book, in this chapter, he makes, the author makes a list of the sentence patterns in Arabic. You have VS, VSO, two objects, VSOO, three objects, VSOOO, and VSOC. Then this is the complement of the object. And let us consider the examples. جاء علي is a verbal clause because it starts with the verb جاء and the subject is علي. VSO كتب علي مقالا. مقالا is the object here. علي is the subject. كتب is the verb. VSO أرسل المشرف لي إيميلا. لي إيميلا two objects. Three objects. أعلم المعلم. أعلم is the verb. المعلم is the subject. الطلاب, this is the first object. الامتحان, this is the second object. سهلا. The Arabic grammarians say that this is a third object, and I doubt it. سهلا is the complement of al-imtihan. It is not an object in itself anyway. So in Arabic grammar, الطلاب, al-imtihan, وسهلا are considered as three objects. And if we translate this sentence into English, we can say the teacher informed the students that the exam is easy or was easy. So as you can see, these